the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go!
What's going on, everybody? Another episode on a Friday. We've had to push back day by a couple days, just given our schedules. Sometimes that might happen. But good to see you guys in the chat who are here so far. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the show. Claudia, Afton, Jared Devil, what's up, guys? Steeler fan. Daniel J and I going to be talking about a little bit of Thursday night game. We'll be talking about this game on Sunday. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have had a good week going into the weekend. Daniel, how's your week been since you got back?
It's been a long week, without Steelers football. I actually put out 3 film videos where I typically only do 1. So that'll tell you a little bit about the week. Yeah, I just went through it all, and football wise, it was a good week to go through, a lot of the plays and what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done in the last couple of weeks and how they're improving, and see that improvement because, you and I were both in stadium at the last game, and in stadium it was frustrating. I guess I watched it on television. It was frustrating there as well. Have you seen the game since on TV?
I haven't watched it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was it was telling, especially on a lot of those plays where they were on the opposite side of the field and we couldn't, get the best view of them.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see everything when they're on the opposite side like that or when they're down the field, but you can just go back and look at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, guys, Daniel and I were at the Thursday night game. And it was already a game I was already thinking about going to, but Daniel messaged me that he had an extra ticket, and so I decided to go with him. But my girlfriend wanted to go too, so she ended up finding tickets with her brother and his roommate, and they were tickets like 5 rows behind where we were, but then like there was a few seats open in front of us, so then they just came down and sat there. So it all ended up working out. But it was a good time. It was my first year, probably the only one I'm going to go to. So I'm glad we went. But it was definitely something of where Daniel watching that game on Thursday, the Steelers should have scored more points. There was missed opportunities once again. We know it was a ref show. We know it was an absolute ref show throughout the game. We know that they wanted to keep Tennessee's drives going for whatever reason. Don't know if they came from there. Don't know if they were wearing some blue. Don't know if they had money on the line. Not really quite sure, but they wanted to, they kept their drives going. And I honestly think that some of their numbers are a little deceiving, just given the fact of what beneficiary calls they got. But the Steelers won. They still found a way to win. They won in the fourth quarter. They stopped Tennessee's ongoing drive at the end of the game with an interception, but there was missed opportunity. We saw there were some open holes not open holes, but open guys, guys getting through the defense, and the ball just wasn't able to get there. There were a couple drops that could have been good plays, especially the George Pickens one we all know. So it was one of those things. It just feels like each week it's on offense, it's just missed opportunity. That's really what it feels like. It feels like a lot of missed opportunity more times than not. But it is what it is. I still think overall defense thought they played pretty well. They gave up a couple things, but they got to Will Levis. They only gave up 16 points, even though that Tennessee got multiple drives added on to them. So got to give credit there. They got some big stops in the fourth quarter. But still fun. It was still a fun night. It was still a good experience to be able to see that. And it was good to go with Daniel and my girlfriend and everybody else like that. So Daniel, I'm sure you share that same kind of mindset with me on stuff. Just miss stuff where the Steelers should have scored more, honestly.
Yeah, looking at it there in stadium and then, through film, it was pretty apparent that the Pittsburgh Steelers left a lot of points on the board. Whether it was missed throws or misreads or dumb penalties that were made. And going through the game, it felt like at the game that the refs were just kind of loose with it. But going back and watching it, there were majority of those penalties were deserved. And I think that's going to be what happens when you have so many young players. That's the downside of having the young players out there, the Keanu Benton and the Joey Porter Juniors of the world that are starting, who are rookies, and even Broderick Jones, who are put in a new situation, or maybe even when they were in college, they weren't in a position that's as meaningful as a football game like the NFL is, and how competitive it is, right? And in college, you can get a penalty, and for instance, Georgia, but you're winning 40 something to 10. It doesn't make the difference in the world. Right. But when it's 10 to 10, or in this game, Steelers are only up by 2 points or 4 points. It makes the biggest difference in the world. So,
right.
Those things need to get cleared up and cleaned up. I think that's also a product of Thursday night football, having a shortened week and
it probably is,
and things like that. And I'm expecting a much cleaner game this week. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to be able to see translate on the field there. And as far as, going to the game, it was a great time, man. I enjoyed it. The one thing that kind of, had me questioning some stuff was the fellow with the Atlanta Falcons sweater. He's a Falcons fan, right?
Yeah, Kelsey's brother.
Like, why was he rooting for the team that just smoked his team's rear the week before?
He's a little confused. Well, let me put it that way. He's a little confused. But honestly, dude, he just hates Pittsburgh teams, and he doesn't really have like a reason. But he just hates Pittsburgh teams. Yeah.
Makes sense. I was wondering, I was like, man, was he trying to, just put it to everybody so bad that he was willing to root for the team that just, handed it.
He probably forgot they just beat them last week. He probably forgot about it.
I would have wanted to if I lost that bad. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, he's not in a good state mentally right now. So he's still recovering. He's still recovering from Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder and all those guys. Yeah.
Well, it was a good time with him. Tell him I said hello when you see him again.
Yeah, we will. We definitely will. But yeah, no, it was definitely a good time. Wasn't it was a little chilly down a little as you're a little bit closer to the field, but it could have been colder just given the fact of December games, and so thankfully it was a beginning of November game.
Yeah. I was pretty cold, man. It was. Yeah. I had the thermals on. I had
you did.
A couple layers of clothing.
Rubbing the thing on your neck, on your face, the warmer.
Dude, it was barely doing anything. I had the hand warmer. I even put it under my hat at a certain point throughout the game. Coming from Texas, it's a little bit different. And I hadn't been outside, even though it's kind of getting a little chilly now. I think it's still in the 50s though. So that night it was low 40s and wind, and it's drier here. Pittsburgh, it's there's a little bit more humidity in the air, so it makes the cold a little bit more colder, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
you're not wrong.
With that game though, Steelers win. They're 5-3. I feel that everybody's still maybe perhaps lacking in confidence when it comes to this team, just because of the performances that they've put up. Is this how do you feel about the team at 5-3?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff lately on that stuff. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that them being at 5-3, I'm not surprised, just given the fact that this is what this team does. Even when they're in the state of mid, or they aren't as good as previous years, things like that, they always find a way to win games, no matter how good or bad that they're playing. So I'm not surprised they have a winning record. I'm not surprised, even though that the offense doesn't score many points. I'm not surprised that they have a winning record and they're still finding ways to win games. Not surprised this is what they do, regardless of how good or not so good they are. It definitely feels like that they're not 5-3, just given the fact of some of the ways they have won games, some of the bad performances we have seen, even in their wins. But them being at 5-3, though, like of course, as a fan, I always want them to win. I don't understand fans that wish them to lose. I don't get that. Like, I understand some frustrations. Every fan has that, though, with their teams. No matter how good or how bad people's favorite teams are, there's always frustrations. Even things could be going right. They could be have a winning record. There's always stuff you're not happy about. With the Steelers, I get the things that people are getting antsy toward, short with, tired of seeing. I get it. Not being able to play a complete game, not be able to put up points every quarter, not being able to be productive. I get that. But I still root for them to win. I don't root for them to lose. I don't root for them to tank. I'm not Jarrett Bailey on Twitter who's a supposed Steeler fan, but wants them to lose every single game. I mean, what kind of fan is that? Like, why? Like, do you really watch the Steelers to crossing your fingers they're going to lose? What kind of fan is that? It's not even a fan.
Yeah.
I don't get that. So, to get a better draft pick. Well, how about all the other teams that lose every single year that get top 5 picks and never put it together? That those draft picks never turn out. Or they're constantly in the same position of drafting in the top 5 year after year after year after year, and it doesn't freaking do anything. So everybody wants their team to win. So that type of mindset that any type of Steeler fan has, I don't understand that. Probably just revoke your fandom. I get the frustration, but it doesn't mean you sit there and you want them to lose just to get a better draft pick. Give me a break. Honestly, give me a break.
Now,
but really at the end of it, Dan, sorry, go ahead.
Well, given the remaining schedule, it's not a very strong schedule.
No,
I think there's some winnable games. So
yeah,
given that, where do you think, how far, what is the ceiling for this team? Kind of looking at where they've been, where they have improved a little bit. Like, just, I watch a lot of them. So when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and especially with Kenny Pickett, and I think that the quarterback is probably one of, maybe I want to say about 60% of the reason I think a team is successful or not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They get the ball most of every offensive play, unless you're running some wildcat or doing something weird.
Right.
And they're usually responsible for where the ball goes, especially during the passing game. Yes. And so if you have a great quarterback, like the Pittsburgh Steelers had some teams where, the team around Ben Roethlisberger wasn't that great, but yet they were continually relevant because of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. And, I think that, shoot, man, I forgot where I was going with that.
Like just pretty much like you're talking about where I think their ceiling's going to be.
I remember.
Like, really.
Yeah. So I remember that. I've looked at from the beginning to the end, and I think that the quarterback play has gotten better, and I think the offense play has gotten a little bit better. I think there's a lot of execution problems, which doesn't fall strictly on the quarterback. There's been some times where offensive line hasn't been successful. There's been some times where the play was defended properly by the defense. They are playing against an NFL defense that have some good players week in and week out, right? But what I have seen better is pocket presence and decisions. Now, I think he needs to make those decisions a little bit faster.
Right.
Kenny Pickett, that is. And I think that if he can do that and get the ball out of his hand a little bit quicker, I think then maybe perhaps the Steelers can be more than, just talkable, maybe actually relevant or competitive. So for me, I've seen this team progress a little bit at a time. I think that they're going in the right direction. I don't know how fast they're going in that direction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The speed limit might be 65. They're still cruising at 35. But last week they were at 20. So
you got freaking they're Jerry going 35.
They're getting there. It's like that DeLorean. It's moving up. It's not as fast as you want it to get there, so you can travel where you want to go, but it's getting there. And I think that It's possible that this team, based on the schedule that they have left and the teams that they're playing left, outside of the division especially, that there's some games that'll help this team improve, if that makes sense. So I think they're going to end up making the playoffs, when it's all said and done. What do you think?
I think you make some good points there. I agree with some of the quarterback stuff. I think Kenny, he hasn't been turning the ball over like he did when the season first started. I think you can definitely see some better decision making. I think really just the thing that's hurting him is just missing the stuff that's there. I really do. I feel like when we watch games in real time, and I think him missing some of that stuff is hurting him the most. Luckily on his end, those are things that he can control. It's not stuff that's outside of his control that he can't do anything about. Where they're at, being 5-3, I still think it feels good. Of course, being 5-3 at this point last year, they were 2-6. So it's obviously better. But it's definitely not in terms of like the type of play that you're seeing for the full 4 quarters. I know it's not what they would like to be seeing. But I think with what we saw a little bit Thursday, I think if some of the stuff that we saw Thursday, if some of that was hit, I think it would be something that could give you a little bit more confidence offensively. And if those are some things maybe that are there on Sunday and maybe can have a little bit of a different result, then we might be able to see some more points racked up, hopefully. For me, I think that they're playing a little bit better defensively than they were earlier in the year. They ran the ball really well Thursday. That might be able to be something that they keep going. But really, if they're able to just find if the quarterback's able to do the things that he can control, hit the things that are there, they're able to run the ball a little bit more consistently the way they did Thursday, I think things will open up better for them. And I think they'll find some more confidence offensively. And if that can happen, I would start to feel better about it. And like, okay, they're starting to kind of be a little bit more of a relevant team with some other teams around the league. Because really right now, they're 5-3, but a lot of people just kind of think like they're just kind of there, like they're finding their ways to win the games, but they're not up there with some of the other squads. Maybe if they could find a little bit of their mojo, stuff like that. Maybe if they're able to maybe put up some over 20-point performances, that might get some more ground underneath them ultimately. But I just kind of feel in a way like if they're just going to kind of be where they're at right now for the rest of the year, it's probably not either going to end well or it's just going to be another first round thing. I think that if they are able to pick some speed up and if they're able to do some better things offensively, I think you might be able to see you'll definitely see some more confidence, but I definitely think you might be able to see some more games that they can win against a couple teams that they have on their schedule that are solid. And maybe feel good of them being able to find themselves in a playoff spot. And I wouldn't be surprised. Like, let's just say that they keep themselves where they're at. Like, really what we've seen throughout the year, that's just kind of how they be this year. I still wouldn't be surprised if they won 10 games and got in. But we all know they're probably not going to really do much. If they're able to find something underneath themselves and they're able to kind of execute better and they're able to maybe pick up some steam in the second half of the season with 9 games left, then it might be a little bit of a different conversation. And maybe like, okay, they face a Seattle at the end of the year. They play Cincinnati twice still. They face a Ravens team at the end of the year. Maybe they could get Jacksonville again in the playoffs. Maybe they could get the Ravens in the playoffs. Maybe they could get Miami in the playoffs. And maybe they might be able to do something for that one game. Who knows? But Thursday, I like what I saw with just some different things that were there, that looked good, that were missed, them running the ball, kind of stuff like that. And with their upcoming schedule and everything, it's definitely favorable. I think they have a great opportunity Sunday to be able to maybe right some of those wrongs offensively that was there Thursday. So that would be great. But they just kind of feel like, to me, where they're at right now is where they've been the last couple years, except this time they're just finding ways to win compared to what they were last year. They're a little bit more polished this year than where they were last year. But if certain things can pick up, then yeah, like obviously we'll start getting a different feel for them. Maybe we might start feeling a little bit better about some stuff, even though they have a winning record. So it's just kind of time will tell, but they're in a good position to be able to win more games the rest of the way than not and be able to try to be a playoff team. But they gotta just execute better offensively, man, because stuff's there sometimes. It's not always there, but stuff's there sometimes. And you just have to really you gotta hit it. And if you do, you can start picking up some more things, more confidence. Things might be able to open up more. You can maybe start running some things maybe that you normally can't. Different stuff's on the table like that. So I think if they can do that, more people will start kind of like, we'll feel better. Other people start seeing, okay, maybe the Steelers team, they're finally starting to find themselves a little bit. They're starting to finally pick some things up and might be a team that maybe people won't want to play. I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I completely get that. I actually think that this team might actually be able to do something in the playoffs. The NFL right now, or the AFC, is kind of, it's up in the air. I know the Chiefs are 7-2, the Ravens are 7-2,
and did I not say that before the season started? The AFC was not going to be this juggernaut that people thought it was going to be.
Correct. So I think that if we were to let's boil this down, the Steelers right now are 5-3. Currently, I think they would be seat number 5 in the playoffs. So they would probably be playing Jacksonville and
I think Miami. I think last time I looked, it'd be Miami.
It would be Miami.
Yeah,
because it would be 7-2 and 6-3, 5-4.
5-4.
Yeah, so it would be Jacksonville.
Okay, then.
Yeah, because well, you know what? You're right. It might be Miami. Miami has 3 losses. So let's just say that
they're going to Florida either way.
Yeah, they're going to Florida. Thank you, Claude. I appreciate that. They're going to Florida, and the Dolphins haven't beaten anybody with a winning record. I think that's been their their deal, right? They every team that they've beaten had a sub 500 record. So, do you think the Steelers can keep pace or beat Miami in January? So the heat shouldn't be a factor,
right?
I do. Another team that's probably going to make it into the playoffs or is going to be a high competitor for the playoffs is going to be the Buffalo Bills. How confident do you think the Steelers can beat the Buffalo Bills if they end up facing them sometime during the playoffs?
I know Buffalo's struggling. And every Buffalo game is like the same, honestly. It feels like watching. I still like them better than the Steelers. I would probably have more confidence of them in Miami than against Buffalo.
Good deal. But is that game winnable?
To a point, but I think the chances are really slim.
Mm-hmm. So you got the Bills. In the AFC West, the Chiefs are definitely going to make it, and I think that matchup is a nightmare for the Steelers. I don't think they can keep up with points there. So if the Steelers face the Chiefs, if they do, it's probably going to be in week 2. So I think that, when it comes to are the Steelers going to win a playoff game, let's talk about just the wild card. Out of that division, 4-5 and 4-4 are the Chargers and the Raiders. How confident are you in either of those 2 teams going up against the Steelers?
Not at all. Not at all. The Chargers don't scare me. Right. And the Chargers every year are just so overrated. Every freaking year. They have a bad coach. They don't have a good defense. I like Justin Herbert, but he still has issues. I don't know. I think they could beat the Chargers.
In AFC South, you have Jacksonville, who, the Steelers just lost to, but in my opinion, in that game as well, Kenny gets out. At that point, I felt like there was an
opportunity to win. It was again like there was missed opportunity offensively, and then Kenny gets hurt and stuff like that. They could have won it.
Right. So I think that's a winnable game for the Steelers if it's, in the right circumstances. Obviously, these teams can also beat the Steelers, right? these aren't games or teams that you're expecting the Steelers to go in there and just blow them out. This is an automatic win, but these are teams that the Steelers can win against. Texans and Colts are behind them. I think those are winnable games as well.
Yeah.
And the AFC North, the Bengals are probably going to make it in. I'm not sure if the Browns are going to be able to keep pace, with the rest of the division. I think that Deshaun Watson really isn't the answer for a quarterback. And eventually they're going to fall off, in my opinion. So you're probably going to have the Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals in there. Steelers have already shown that they can, compete and beat with. They're going to keep it close with the Ravens, and it's going to be a one-score game there. And Bengals, we'll see. They've been talking there's been a lot of crap being talked about the Steelers from their camp that I saw in the some report earlier that what was it they said? Something about the Steelers are bad. Kenny Pickett's bad. They're not worried about the Steelers. And I'm like, for a team that's in last place in the division, y'all got some big mouths for it. But,
right.
I think that the division is winnable as well. So if the Steelers go to, or even if, somehow the Steelers win the division, that would be great. But, let's just say they don't, and they get in the wild card and they play, Jacksonville first. And then they got to travel to Miami second. And then the third place, Ravens.
Right.
Are those, is that a winnable set of games there for the Steelers?
It is. I think when you look at it face value, it is. That's just really where the AFC's at. I think other than like the Bengals are fine in their groove. They're looking like where they left off at toward the end of last year a little bit. But I know the Ravens are a lot of people think they're the best team in the AFC right now, but still, like I still think they're a beatable team against some of these AFC teams. I don't really think the AFC is right now, as we look at it, it's not, there's not one team in there that's not beatable, or that, let me rephrase that. There's not one team in the AFC that I think is higher than really anybody else. Yeah. I think it's a big pond right now. I really do. I think it's a big pond. NFC is a little different. I think you have a few teams in the NFC, and then you kind of have the rest that can probably go head to head with each other. But the AFC is just kind of like a pond, man. I think, and then it's just who starts to play better. But yeah, it would have to really kind of go in the Steelers' favor. I think Buffalo would kind of scare me a little bit, though I know they're struggling. Cincinnati would scare me a little bit, Kansas City, but if they could maybe find themselves an opponent that, like I said, like a Jacksonville or something like that, they can match up well against, that'd be good.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And
I don't know.
I'm with you there, and I think that this isn't an impossible task for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And depending on who they play, let's just say the stars line up, and we get all sevens on the jackpot machine there, and the Steelers find themselves in that sort of path towards the Super Bowl. If they go up against the 49ers again, or the Eagles, I find those teams to be a very difficult matchup for the Steelers. So
yeah.
Could it be wishful thinking? Yeah, probably is. But at the end of the day, when you think about it logically, I do think that there is a possible path there. If they go up against and they have to go to Arrowhead, that's going to be difficult. That's going to be that might be the one that stops it. But Kansas City, they've lost to Lamar before, and the Ravens. They've lost to the Bengals before as well. So there are teams that are better equipped to play against the Chiefs and perhaps take them out, that the Steelers are better equipped to play up against because they're in the division. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's a possibility there.
No, there definitely is. They got to raise their game offensively. We all know this. They got to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, because if you're not doing it, you're ultimately not really going to go anywhere. And people will say that too, is the way that they're winning games, how sustainable is it with not being able to really put up points for the most of the game, and then you play well in the fourth quarter or stuff like that. I get that. It's not really too sustainable. But given their schedule, it's something that they can like be favored a lot, I think. But they can find a way to find some type of mojo on offense a little bit this last half of the year, and maybe find themselves breaking over 20, stuff like that. I think people would start to feel a little bit better.
Yeah, me too. And I think that at this point of the season, I know it's kind of hard to do, but I think it'd probably be best if we just kind of wipe out the first half of the season. The Steelers aren't in a bad position, kind of like what we did last year. For me at least, going into the bye week, I had a huge question mark about Kenny Pickett, and I said, I'm gonna just wipe all that away. Depending on what they do in the second half of the season, we'll see what happens. And they ended up doing a lot better. I'm not going to say they were, elite or anything like that, but they ended up getting a 7-2 record down the stretch. Is it possible that the Steelers have a similar jump? It's possible. I mean, they're going to start Broderick Jones now. He's going to be the starting right tackle. And
so
from the film that I have, the film that I've broken down, I've seen already not just Broderick Jones being better than Chuks Okorafor, but Broderick Jones also making players around him better. For instance, there was a play during where I was breaking down the film where Chuks Okorafor had to get to the second level, and Isaac Seumalo was going to be pulling from the left side behind Broderick Jones or Chuks Okorafor and attacking the second level there, from looping around. And what ended up happening was when Broderick Jones did it, he would hit the defensive tackle on his way up to the second level. And when he did that on the two occasions where Isaac Seumalo was coming around, both times Isaac Seumalo was in a way better position for the block and made a way better block than what he did when Chuks, who just ran straight to the linebacker, didn't assist, didn't chip the defensive tackle on his way to the second level. And in that situation, Isaac Seumalo is meeting the defensive player basically in the hole, versus when he was meeting with Broderick Jones, he's meeting the player outside of the hole, already past it. With Chuks Okorafor going up there, he's meeting the player either in the backfield or right at the hole.
Yeah.
And
that's not
he's
good.
not in a great position. And there's been times where he's kind of just like bent over and he doesn't look like he's doing well, but I think it's because he's out of position in those plays. And when it came to what Broderick Jones was doing, he just set it up better for the players around him.
Right.
And it translated on the stat sheet, 160 plus yards rushing for the Steelers running backs. I still think, I like the Jaylen Warren Najee 1-2 punch. But I do think that punch should be Jaylen 1 and then Najee 2. What are your thoughts on the running back position?
I think they both complement each other well. I think most people will agree to that. And I think just a lot of people knew that when the Steelers were struggling to run the ball, a lot of people knew that if they had some help from their line, they would be able to make the plays. Like they're not running backs where even though the plays are there to be made, they're not making it. More times than not, we're seeing Warren and Najee both fighting for yards that aren't really quite there. We're seeing them when those holes are there, they're hitting it. And when you have a complementary backfield like that of two different runners, when you're able to get them going, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, you can look at multiple teams over the past few years that have had a running back by committee type thing, or they've had two different type running backs that offset each other, and it ends up doing really well. But they need help. And last Thursday, they finally got help. So if you're able to keep that line intact that you put out Thursday, you already see the difference Broderick Jones already makes. I like them both. However you want to do it, I'm okay with. I think both both need to have productivity in each game. I don't care how you use either one. I don't care who's the one, who's the two. I like them both. They're both different. Najee doesn't really have the explosive factor Jaylen Warren does, but Najee's a ground for pound back. Just use him in the right situations. Don't use Najee running the outside, right? Crap like that. He's not going to get anywhere with that. Use him in the right situations. Hopefully their line can kind of stay intact. Everything of that kind of nature, but I like them both as a combo, and I'm fine having that next year too, but the line's got to help, and they did Thursday, and we saw that pay off, so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I'm good with either one. However they want to do it. Like I like both guys. I think that both, when things are there, both find a way to hit that. We know Najee last year was having vision issues, but I haven't really seen that this year. I think that it's more so of he doesn't have the explosive factor, and that's why probably a lot of people think with where the line has been through this year, why Jaylen Warren was probably the better back to use it, just because his quickness, his speed, his explosive running. Rather than if you have that time in the backfield, Najee's going to be able to have those good looks, but you don't always have that. But we saw more of that Thursday, which was great for his sake. So either one, you need to be able to find productivity for both guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're a good 1-2 punch. I like the combo. I think that Jaylen Warren might bring a little bit more, and I think he should be getting the bulk of the snaps, in my opinion. You know, when I went back and looked at the film, the couple of plays that Najee got, down the field were because they were blocked perfectly. The plays that Jaylen Warren got down the field, not so much. There was one where he was hitting the backfield, had to spin out, and then he uses
he's a fighter, man.
Speed.
He doesn't give up.
To get to the edge. Now, there was one player on the Titans team that a lot of folks were kind of upset that he left the Steelers, and that was Terrell Edmonds. And I think I saw why the Steelers didn't want to offer him some money there. He was victimized often. He was what was it? He got blocked on his rear like 3 times. One by George Pickens. He was coming in on a blitz.
Yeah, I remember that one.
He didn't see George, and George just boom, knocked him on his rear. And then one of the Jaylen Warren big runs, Terrell Edmonds crashed in, leaving the outside open. Jaylen Warren bounced it out to the outside, took off running for 15, 17 yards. And that was a play that brought back a lot of memories of Terrell Edmonds and him leaving his area and the ball carrier bouncing it out. So I think I saw why the Steelers didn't want to bring him back or didn't make any effort of signing him. It was for a good reason. I felt that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, I just felt that the Steelers knew what his tendencies were and maybe what his weaknesses were, and they definitely tried to exploit those and were successful in many occasions. They threw against him, they ran towards him. He was getting victimized the entire game.
Yeah. No, he was. Back on Chuck's Okorafor, he's owed $13 million next year. He's gone. You think that they're going to pay him $13 million? Absolutely not. He's done. Mason Cole's owed a decent bit of money. It's hard to see them keeping him on that current contract. You know who? Like I've mentioned this before, but somebody on defense that I just don't get behind is Keanu Neal. Like I don't really. He doesn't really make many plays. He didn't really have a good game Thursday. He misses tackles. Like I don't really think the signings really paid off too much for them.
He's also the reason Cole Holcomb is in here.
Right. So there you go.
He was the leg whipper.
Yeah. So Mark Robinson's gonna get an extended role. We'll see if they bring anybody else up. I think not having Cole Holcomb, you'll see it, but I like Quan Alexander. I honestly think Quan's been our best linebacker in my opinion, though I think Cole Holcomb was playing pretty well throughout the season. So, I'd much rather have Holcomb. Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. And Cole Holcomb, he's still got a couple years on his contract. So, but how much of an impact do you think not having him is gonna hurt? You think they'll be able to minimize it?
Well, Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say that what Coach Tomlin said about the situation was pretty jacked up. He said that they had a luxury of having 3 inside linebackers, so they're not going to feel any drop by not having Koholcomb out there on the field. And I was like, that's kind of cold to say that. We don't really need him. It's okay. But outside of that, Quan Alexander, it was a great pickup for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's one that's going to be working out for them because had that not been the case, I mean, we would have the combination right now of Mark Robinson and Elandon Roberts, who when you're going up against a rushing team, that's probably the duo you want out there. But when offenses see that, they're probably spreading them out as quickly as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
So it wouldn't have been great. So it was a great pickup in the offseason. But transitioning onto this next game and injuries and who's going to be out and who's going to be in, Minkah Fitzpatrick already ruled out. Martavius Adams already moved out. Martavius is a guy that a lot of folks thought he wasn't going to make it through a training camp, or through preseason. And thus far, he's been a huge piece of the defense. His ability to get to the quarterback has been huge. He's done great. He had an ankle, injury during game. It's going to hold him out of this game. Keanu Benton's going to have to step up. Cam Hayward, he's been dealing with his groin. He was back out there on the practice field. Seems like he's going to be playing. I don't know if he's going to be taking another 40 snaps, but, are you concerned about the health of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense right now?
Not too much, especially against Green Bay. I think that this is the game that you'll be okay not having Minkah and Adams there. I think next week against the Browns is something that you want everybody at full health, the best you possibly can have. I have full confidence Keanu Benton being able to step up more, especially not having Montravius Adams there. And Minkah playing, see, that's the thing too, like Minkah's not really playing like where he usually is. I think we might see, we'll probably see a little bit again what we saw some of on Thursday without him. I think Minkah possibly not having Cole Holcomb and then not having Fitzpatrick up front. You might be able to see a little bit of that absence there with Aaron Jones running the ball. But I'd still rather take this game than not having them next week. Honestly. So I have confidence I still have confidence in their defense being able to keep Green Bay in check. How's that swollen mouth? How's the swollen mouth? Guy had to have every tooth pulled the other day, so he doesn't brush his teeth. That's why.
Well, there's better ways of making
Guy's gonna
money,
need dentures.
There's better ways to make money. You don't have to do those type of things.
Yeah.
The Packers are coming in limping as well. Jair Alexander's probably not going to play.
That's big.
They have a lot of linemen that have been dealing with a lot of issues coming into this game. Jordan Love hasn't been, too impressive. I know they're coming off of probably their most impressive win of the season. And here last week, I think he was like 70-something% completion. I think they won 20-3 or something like that. And, they're coming off of momentum. They have some momentum going into this game. So do the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers have had some time off to prepare for this game. Who do you think is going to win this matchup? Who's going to have the better stats at the end of the game? Kenny Pickett or Jordan Love?
It's a good question. I'm going to say Kenny's going to. I think some of the things you touched on is reality. I think Kenny's going to hit a little bit more than what he did not hit Thursday. I don't know how much of the rib injury affected him, but even before that, he was having some throwing problems. But I'm confident in what they were able to put out Thursday that was missed. I'm confident in them being able to bounce it back. And that they know that there's frustration there, that they know that they should have done more. They should have scored more. They should have hit more, right? George Pickens, I think, is going to get more involved. I think that we're going to be able to see them run the ball more effectively, like what we saw Thursday. And I think that's going to help. I think that is. Put yourself in some scoring positions. I think this defense against Green Bay's offensive line that's freaking banged up, you know what's funny? Green Bay's like 2 tackles, Jenkins and Bakhtiari. I know Bakhtiari's out for the year, but you talk about glass. Seriously, they have never they can never have a competent offensive line. They honestly can't. Eric Beal agrees. What's up, man? Appreciate you tuning in. But I think the defense is going to have some really nice opportunities to be able to set the offense up. And I know that we've seen that at different points throughout the season, but I think with what we saw a little bit Thursday, I'm confident we're going to be able to see a little bit more of that again, and that we'll be able to take advantage more of what was missed on Thursday night. I really do, especially against a Green Bay. Now, if we're facing a team this week like a Cincinnati or a division game, it's probably going to be a little bit of a different feel. But I think against Green Bay, who's struggling, who's vulnerable, especially if you have a guy like Alexander out, especially if you have another guy or two on your defense out, that leaves you in a definitely more vulnerable position. I'm confident we're going to see a little bit more taken advantage of than what we saw on Thursday. That they should have, but they weren't, but they didn't. They missed crap. So I'm confident they're going to be able to do a little bit more Sunday. And I think that we're going to be able to look at the performance and say, okay, this is probably what we should have saw more of Thursday, but I think we're going to feel okay. And I'm confident in that aspect. So with those reasons behind it, I'll say Kenny.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think that Kenny is also going to have the better day. The offensive line for Green Bay is not that great.
Like that's what I mean, dude. I really think our defense is going to be able to get them at least a few opportunities at the 50-yard line. I really do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think just the fact that Kenny, like you mentioned, I think he is heading in the right direction. Is it slower than I would like? Yeah. Is he, even if he were to, start accelerating, is he going to be the next franchise guy? I don't know. But
yeah,
is he good enough to win some games? And if he hits on some of these throws, I think the narrative behind Kenny Pickett maybe starts to shift a little bit. But that's the difference between an elite quarterback and an average quarterback, is the inches and the details between, hitting a receiver wide open or over the top, and getting that there, and not, that's an elite quarterback. And a non-elite quarterback just misses it by a couple
that's
of
it.
inches.
And you know what? This is my perspective. I know Steelers fans want an elite quarterback right now. It's so hard to find. I think it's easier. Listen, I think it's easier to find average to solid quarterbacks nowadays than previous times, but it's still hard to find guys that are going to run your team for 15 to 18 years. It's still hard to find guys like that. There's there's situations where some teams have gotten lucky, like the Chargers have kind of fallen into that hole a little bit, where they were able to kind of go from Phillip Rivers, who we know Phillip Rivers wasn't up there in other tiers with some of the other guys, but he was still their franchise guy. And then you're able to get Justin Herbert. You have situations like that. But with the Steelers, you see Kenny, who's able to play well in the fourth quarter, who's winning them games. And you still should be glad in the sense that they're winning those games, but also in the sense like, okay, we can go with this until either he gets better or until we make the decision where we're going to go in a different direction. Because you're not in a place of where you're wanting to get top 5 pick after top 5 pick. That's a recipe for disaster. If you find yourself in that position year after year, you're a failure. You're an absolute failure that has no direction on what's going on. So I think there's still opportunity for Kenny to shift the narrative. There's still opportunity for Kenny to have a good second half, to take a step forward, and that might take people off his back. That might make fans feel a little bit better. We have to wait and see how that pans out. But for the fact of how he plays in the fourth quarter, a little bit of the third quarter, and some things that we do see at certain points, it makes me not want to give up quite yet and just continue to say, okay, let's just hang in there. We're winning games, which is great, but let's just kind of keep hanging in there. If we have to end up going in a direction, we go in a different direction. But I think everybody wants them to do well. It's just, as I've always said before, just how long does the organization give? What's the patience level, right? Different kind of stuff like that. So we just have to wait and see. But I don't know. It's kind of one of those things of. It's hard, man. It's hard to find quarterbacks.
No, I agree. It is 100%. It is difficult. In fact, if it was easy, there would be a lot of teams with good quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think there's nothing we can do now, right? There's not a quarterback that's out there that's going to automatically come into this situation and take the Steelers to the promised land. There's nothing we can do. Kenny Pickett's going to be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the year. Mitch Trubisky isn't a guy that's going to save this team. Mason Rudolph isn't a guy that's going to save this team.
He's getting cut next year. There's no way. I don't have any faith in the Steelers paying him the rest of his contract.
I would hope not. I would hope that they wouldn't want to keep him around.
Oh, my goodness.
But, yeah, there's not somebody who is, going to save the team or going to, save the offense, so to speak, right?
No, right.
And, give him the rest of the year. He has games that are winnable. There are teams that are winnable in the playoffs. And we'll see what happens, right? Now, I think that the fan base is starting to pick up a little bit on who Kenny could be, right? He could be great, but based on what we've seen, he could also not be so great. And, in stadium, there was some boos. And were those boos directed towards Matt Canada? Maybe, but I think that some of them were also directed to Kenny.
It was some of the stuff that was there. We can go back and talk about the plays. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there was, open throws that weren't made and they were overthrown. I think the third overthrown ball, fans started getting rowdy. They started booing.
Yeah.
And, I think that, the team's only going to have as much patience as probably the fan base. And, the fan base doesn't control it. But, what was happening with Mitch Trubisky, quarterback last season, against the Jets? I wasn't in stadium, but from what I heard from those that were, before Kenny Pickett got in the game, you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet.
Yeah.
They weren't into it. It was difficult to sell game tickets. I'm a season ticket holder, I know. And Kenny Pickett gets into the game and things turn around, momentum, stuff like that. Yeah, and even though he didn't play the greatest, he made the fan base feel like, all right, there's some hope here, there's potential. Yeah. And this year so far, it's been a little bit of maybe a regression from him. You know what I'm saying? But is it possible that he can take another step forward? Yeah. I think it's possible. But, if he ends up not being that guy and the team doesn't make the playoffs and the team ends up going 3-6 or something down the road, then I think you do have to ask that question in this offseason, because I think that this team, when you look at the wide receivers, are those wide receivers that if you had an elite quarterback could win you some games? 100%. If you look at the running back position, I think that those running backs are good enough that if the defenses weren't crowding, the up front all the time, because there's no threat of keeping honest over the top, do they become better players? I think so. And if you're able to throw the ball deep down the field against the blitz and you're able to quickly make decisions, our team's going to blitz you as often. No. So all of those things can be alleviated with a better quarterback play. Now, can Kenny Pickett get there? If he doesn't, do we want to waste another year on it? But I think that he deserves the entire year.
Yeah, I think, we'll see how you gotta, of course, always see how the second half of the season, how the second half of the season goes, whatever conversations you have, but it could be, I think it's gonna be one or two things, Daniel. I think that the team, finishes strong. You see some good things come out of the offense, or they're just kind of where they're at, and they're going to try to win games like that.
I got a question for you. Do you think Kenny Pickett finishes his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler?
It's a great question. It's a matter of how long he plays in the league for. Okay, well, I'm going to say no. And the reason why is because even when we drafted him, I never thought he was going to be our quarterback for 15 years. I always thought he was either going to be our guy for a short period of time, or he was going to be our guy, maybe for like 9-10 years. And you could be able to win some games like that. I'm going to say no, though, just because I never viewed him as somebody that was going to be the elite, top tier franchise type quarterback. And I don't use franchise quarterback loosely. I don't. Like, my version of a franchise quarterback, somebody who's going to take the reins for 15 plus years and bring success for your franchise. Not somebody who, like, you just draft a quarterback and they're playing well their rookie year and you sit there and say, yeah, he's our guy for the next 15 years. I need stuff to play out. I really do. So I'm not giving up on him. There's things about him I think we all can sit and say that we have liked. There's more that we need to see, especially where he's at in year 2. But I think it's one of two things. I don't think the rest of the year is either. I don't think it's gonna get worse. I think it's either just stays where it's at, or I think it's good. And then you go from there.
Yeah. For me, I don't, I'm also in the same boat. I'm not sure he finishes his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I'm not even sure he gets the 5th-year option based on the way he's been playing.
Yeah, it just depends. It just depends. Like, I think that they're going to give him another go next year. Really do.
If this team ends up with I don't know, I think they'd have to completely fall off.
Like, it's got to be total collapse, but like realistically, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Right. I don't think it's going to happen either. I think they would have to go like maybe only win 2 games down the stretch.
Yeah, that's not happening.
And maybe at that point, the Steelers might consider it because they might be in some sort of position to get somebody if somebody falls. But for me, I don't think he is. I don't think he was suited for the North. When you go look at the games that he's played well, it's been in California, it's been in Las Vegas. Those were the games that he had against Los Angeles. Those were his better games.
Yeah.
The games against Jacksonville where it's raining. It's not the best, and when I was doing the draft, going through the draft process, I thought he would be a great fit for like New Orleans, being that they're a team that plays in the South.
Yeah.
They have
show
a lot
some
of
interest in him too? Didn't they show up to his pro day and stuff?
Yeah. He actually thought he was going to go to the Saints.
Right. That's right. He said that.
Yeah. So he thought he was going there. And I thought that would have been a good fit for him.
Yeah. I thought he was going to take earlier at 20. I did. I thought he was going to get taken earlier at 20.
Yeah.
And it's funny that draft too. I really didn't. That was probably the first draft where I didn't really care what they did. I was like, okay, if they decide to take a quarterback, it is what it is. I'm okay with it. If they decide to take best player available or different direction, I'm okay with it. Like, it was just a weird like draft.
I didn't want a quarterback in the first. I didn't think any of the quarterbacks that were there were worthy of the first round pick.
Yeah.
That was my thing going up into the draft. I was like, hey,
I'd have to look back at that draft and like be like, okay, if they didn't take a quarterback, what would have made the most sense for who was still on the board at that time? I have to look back, but
because I honestly think, well, I mean, if they don't take Kenny, I think they're taking George Pickens first. They wanted him. They had their eyes on George. You know what I'm saying? I think he fell because of the ACL and things like that. But I honestly think you probably get him backwards. I think you can get George at 1 and still get Kenny at 2.
I mean, possibly all the other quarterbacks were in the 3rd round.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's that possibility that could have happened. But for me, I just don't think it's going to end up happening. He'd really have to turn things around.
Yeah.
And the thing that hurts him the most, in my opinion, is the success of the rookie quarterbacks this year as well. And even the success of any quarterback. Josh Dobbs came from one team to another. He got comfortable with his center 15 minutes before the game or an hour before the game during pre-warm-ups. That's when he started getting his cadence down, and he outperformed. And they're 12-5, but I think that a lot of the reason why they're 12-5 isn't because of Kenny. I think it's because of the defense. And, if you put this offense on a mediocre defense without TJ Watt, it's not going to look good. Without the TJ, without Cam, without Minka, go grab another defense, let's just say, who's a team that's struggling right now that has a poor offense and a poor defense, you're probably going to get some of the similar results there.
Cardinals.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the offense, although they have kept it, they've won the game in the fourth quarter. They've done what they needed to do to win games in fourth quarter. If the opposite team gets more than 16 points, it's not a good look for the Steelers. So if they didn't have the defense that they had, or that they have, creating so many turnovers, I don't think they'd be 12-5. I think this year they've won some games that they probably shouldn't, and I think the two divisional games are those. The one against the Browns. If Nick Chubb doesn't go out, out of that game, I don't think they win that game. And the Ravens, how many drop passes did they have?
Right.
So, just being real, this team could easily be 3-5.
Yeah.
And they're not looking very good. So,
yeah. Well, they got a good opportunity this second half of the season to be able to get something going, find a mojo, find a feel on offense. But I stand by that, man. I think we see just the same, and that we just see how it plays out, or things get a little better. I think it's one of the two. It's hard for me to see things get worse.
Let's do some predictions real quick before we call it a show.
Yeah.
Do you think? What are your prediction on the game? I want to know what your prediction on yards for Kenny, rushing yards, and then obviously defensive stats, and then the score.
Okay. Well, prediction wise, for Kenny, I'm gonna say he. Let me think. I don't know, man. Like, for some reason, I have a good feeling about this game. I don't know if it's because some of the Packer injuries. I don't know if it's just because a little bit what we saw last Thursday, even though they should have scored more points, still gave me optimism. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say, like, do you want me a full prediction or just like over a certain amount?
Yeah, no. Just tell me, you think how many yards you think he's going to end up getting? It can be an over amount. It doesn't matter.
Okay. I'm going to go. We see 240 yards from Kenny, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. I'm going to say that we see over 100 yards total rushing again from both guys. Say Najee touchdown. I'm going to say we see another Deontay tutty. I think I'm going to say no Pickens touchdown, but I'm going to say that he gets like 5-6 catches for like 70-80 yards. Defensively, I'm going to say they only give up about 16 points or so at the most. I think that they at least get 1 interception. I'm going to say they get a couple stops that helps out the offense, whether that's through turnovers or just punt. And total prediction, Steelers take the win 23-16.
Nice. That's not too far off from what I'm thinking as well. Well, to a certain extent. I do think that this is going to be – I got a good feeling about this game as well. And I think that – getting kind of concerned because when we both got a good feeling about a game, I don't know how that's going to work out. But I do have a feeling, a good feeling about this game. I do think that this is a game where Kenny's going to get 3 touchdowns, man. I think he's going to blow it up.
Man. Let's
3
go.
touchdowns. I think
that change the narrative? Or is it more so? Yeah, I was going to say, is it change the narrative, or is it more so, okay, this is great, let's do it more?
No, it doesn't change the narrative yet. The issue with Kenny Pickett is consistency, right? He's well in the fourth quarter, but in the first 3 quarters, it's not there. And here recently, he's been getting a little bit hotter in the third quarter. He got the first drive in the first half, or in the first quarter, right? So, maybe perhaps he puts it together for this game. He's going to have to put it together for a couple of games to show that it's not a fluke,
need a track record.
One-off.
That's what you need.
Right.
You need a track record.
Right. So I don't know if that's going to happen after this game or not. You know what I mean? But I think like a broken clock that's right twice a day. Eventually he's going to have a game. And I think this is going to be that game. And, I hope it starts to create maybe some momentum, some confidence, and, not just in him, but in the offense in total. Chicks Okorafor got benched because apparently he said something to the effect that he should have just, at the end of the Jacksonville game, they should just kneel the ball. That it was already over. I think they were down by multiple scores and only, 2 minutes left in the game. They were at the 2-yard line or something like that. And he made the statement that, we should just kneel the ball. So I understand why they pulled him out, I guess. I don't think that's as big of an issue as what maybe George Pickens was doing when he was saying free me. You know what I mean? Because I think everybody was kind of feeling that way at the end of the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Like, let's just get out without any more injuries. But it is what it is. I mean, you got to treat certain people a certain way, I guess. And if you have
it worked out for the better though. Okorafor is mid as it comes at the best, and that's how he's been his first 5-6 years in the league. It's just reality. He's somebody who's a high end backup tackle or a just very low end starter.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's the case, and I think he's going to be an NFL starting tackle somewhere else. It's just not going to be in Pittsburgh after this season.
I can see it. There's going to be every year. There's teams that need new tackles. Man, go get new opportunities somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be given that opportunity. I think that maybe perhaps the Steelers end up getting maybe even a center and a right tackle, move Broderick Jones to the left side where he was drafted to be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if something like that ends up happening in the offseason. But, for this year, I think that, you have a good offensive line. They're coming together now. I think you have the right players out there. I think the combination with Dan Moore on the left side and Broderick Jones on the right side is better than Broderick Jones on the left side and Chicks Okorafor on the right side.
Oh, well, yeah, right? For sure. The Cardinals are doing the same thing right now with Paris Johnson. He's playing on the right side. He'll be a left tackle next year.
Right, exactly. And so, get him out there. He plays well in this position. I think that's going to do well for this team. I think they're going to start to run the ball a little bit better. And I can see another 150 plus yard game between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. I see the 3 touchdowns, no interceptions for Kenny. And defensively, I think the Steelers are going to get to Jordan Love quite a bit. I think TJ has another multiple sack game. I think that, Highsmith is going to be creating havoc back there as well. And I think that's going to put the Packers in some pressure situations, and we might see a couple of turnovers due to it. Joey Porter Jr. now being the starter, and with him kind of looking like a guy, right? Early on, he's kind of looking like a dude that can be out there. And God knows the Steelers needed to draft a cornerback that could do what we're hoping he's doing right now, right?
It's been way too long.
So, yeah, way too long. And I think that that's going to help out as well. I see the Steelers winning this game 26-13 is the way I have it.
All right. Not too far off. Pretty close to Claude.
Yeah, 26. Well, actually 27-13.
Dude, how would you feel, man?
3 touchdowns.
Okay. If let's say it's a pretty dominant offensive game for the Steelers. Does Matt Canada stay?
After this game? I don't know. So we were talking off air before we started, and I was talking about the fact that I was looking at a couple of different plays when I was breaking down, who was a better tackle, Chicks Okorafor or Broderick Jones. And I told you that within the first half of the Jacksonville Jaguars game and the Tennessee Titans game, I found 3 of pretty close plays. If not, for sure, 2 of them are the exact same play. It didn't take me very long to find plays that were the same in those 2 games. So that was a little bit of a concern. But I think that I think the Steelers would have to average over 26 points a game the rest of the way for Canada to end up staying.
Yeah, I think it's damaged goods, man. Even if the Steelers have a good, like, let's say they have a couple good offensive performances this year, like the rest of the way, I think it's damaged goods. I think it's done. I think it's chalked. Like, I think that it's hard to even see a guy like him, like, just how much crap he's gotten. Like, why would you want to stay here? People are out on you, and you've put 3 years in here. I think it's chalk. I really do. But
well, we said that about Mr. Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. Why do you want to stay? Why do you want to be here?
Yeah.
It might be a situation where nobody else wants him. And, I wouldn't put it past the
Canada's
Steelers.
is just like up here. Like it's been bad, like terms of hate.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And, I mean, it would depend on the offers. I mean, do you think that if he turns it around, let's just say the Steelers start scoring big, I don't know if anybody's going to get him an offer this season. So that's going to probably be, if he ends up staying, that's probably an issue there. It's because he didn't get any offers. If he ends up turning this team around this season and goes into next year and they continue that success, do you think he's going to get offers at that point? I think so.
Again, it's a track record thing.
Right. So if he ends up, turning this around this year, stays another year, and they continue a similar success, he can go out there and say, hey, I turned that team around and, I was part of that rebuild. And I think that there might be some teams that maybe the Chicago Bears will go out there and get him as their head coach.
Oh, good grief, man. The misery would not end for Chicago. I'll tell you that much. Oh, my goodness.
Throw that out there.
Dude. Holy cow. Wow.
But, I appreciate having me on, man. I do got to get going here pretty quick, though.
Yeah. Yep. So you gave your prediction. We both feel confident offensively in the sense that they'll be able to put together a good game. Daniel thinks this could be Kenny's best game of his career. Now, he's not saying that as in up here, but pretty solid overall game. I have a good feeling about it too. Let's hope they put it together. But yeah, we'll call it here, guys. Talked a little bit about Thursday night game going into this game against Green Bay. I think we all in the chat feel pretty good about it. So we appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out, tuning in, all you guys who are here every week. Anybody new, thank you all so much. We'll aim to be back next Wednesday on Daniel's channel. So give him a follow, guys. State of the Steelers, if you have not. He has been posting some content, breaking down different film that a lot of people appreciate and enjoy, and it's good content. So check that out, guys. But thank you all for your support, and we'll see what happens Sunday. I think we all, like I said, we all have a pretty good feeling about it. So we will see. So thank you, guys. Enjoy your weekends. See you next week.